And I mean, we reported on the fact and revealed that the heads of UNRWA schools are, in many cases, and actually I have with me, and I could show you a draft of our report. It's 250 pages. And if you want, I could just show you. It hasn't been put out yet, but I happen to have it with me in my knapsack. I'm doing editing it. 250 pages showing UNRWA teachers, school principals who belong to Hamas. The head of the UNRWA Teachers Union, overseeing 2,000 UNRWA teachers in Lebanon. Mr. Fathi Sharif was the head of Hamas in Lebanon. Israel killed him in September with a missile, and the day he was killed, Hamas said, "You killed our leader." This is the head of a UN union of teachers, and UNRWA said, "We did not know." Really? Because for 10 years on his Facebook page, he was posting Hamas leaders, pictures of terrorist acts. Every second day, he was saying, "I love Hamas." Pictures of himself with terrorist leaders. We call that hiding in plain sight, but UNRWA did not know. Pictures of him on stage with a 5-year-old boy with a green Hamas headband that they have like their jihad headband. 5-year-old boy learning jihad karate. And this Mr. Fathi Sharif, UNRWA teacher, principal of a major school, head of the teachers union, is bringing the kid on the stage to learn jihadi karate, to kill for the name of Allah. And the pictures are on the web. I see them in Geneva. Trust me, UNRWA knows about it. And these are the schools. These are the schools. So it did not happen in a vacuum? Yes, you're right. They went to these schools where they were told that you need to make war to destroy Israel.
That's because Hamas, the very idea or the very existence of Hamas is about destroying Israel, right?
That is their purpose.
That's their purpose.
It's in their charter, yeah.
That would be because when Israel was placed there, 700,000 Palestinians had to move away. Am I right? I'm just trying to find the vacuum, the vacuum.
Well, Jews have been in Israel for 3,000 years. Yeah, so King David, we can just look in the Bible and every hotel.
Well, if Israel was supposed to be anywhere, it's there.
Well, the way Brazil is in Brazil, Israel is in Israel.
Yeah.
So King David had his kingdom 1,000 years before Christ. Okay, 1,000 years. And King David ruled, and you can go visit Jerusalem and see the city of David and see things from thousands of years ago. And the temple in Jerusalem was built by his son, King Solomon, and it lasted for hundreds of years. And there was a second temple, and the exterior wall built by King Herod 2,000 years ago is there. So everyone knows that the Jewish kingdoms and the Jewish temples were there. Even the Muslims who came later, the Muslims only came in the 7th century and invaded, and they built their mosques where the temple used to be. They used to call it Beit al-Maqdis, which is the holy temple, which is the Jewish name. It's the same name in Hebrew, which is Beit HaMikdash, same thing. So Israel was in Israel for thousands of years. And the Jews started coming back in the time primarily. They came back many times over the years, but the Zionist movement is in the late 19th century. The Jews started coming back. And then you had Arabs who were not nationalist. There was no Palestinian state. If we want to recreate the Palestinian state, who was the founder of the Palestinian state?
Yeah.
Meaning, if you say who were the Jewish leaders, you have King David and King Solomon and Hezekiah and the Maccabees, and you have all the names in the Bible of who was there. Who was the Palestinian leader?
Let's get a parenthesis here.
No one. There was there was no Palestinian state. There were Arabs living there, but all the years there were the Crusaders, there were the Mamluks, there were the Ottomans, the Turks were there for 500 years. The British came, and then the British were pushed out actually by the Jews who fought the British, and in 1948 they declared a state.
Do you think there is any? Do you think people there in UN and the leaders, they are trying to create a fair Palestinian state, like a real one?
Who, the Palestinians or the Israelis?
Yeah, the Palestinians.
Yeah, right? Palestinians. Sadly, the answer is no. You know, in 1937, 1937 was the first time that the British were ruling Palestine for about 30 years. After the end of World War I, they took it from the Turks. And the Arabs started rising up and engaging in violence in the 1930s. And the British had a commission, and they said, you know what, let's divide the land. We'll give a little bit to the Jews, we'll give a larger part to the Arabs, and everyone will get something. The Arabs are already getting Syria and Egypt, and which they didn't have before. Before World War I, the Turks had everything. The Arabs had nothing. There was no Arab state. They didn't have Saudi Arabia. They didn't have Egypt. They were all controlled by the Ottoman Empire or the British Empire. There was no Arab state. And the Lawrence of Arabia, this great movie, is the promise of the British that if you help us defeat the Turks, we will give you the first Arab state. So they got Syria and they got Iraq. Iraq was, they took the Hussein family from Saudi. They lost Saudi Arabia, and the Husseins were moved to Iraq and Egypt, and they created Jordan, and these were never free before. Mm-hmm. And suddenly the British said, okay, we'll divide Palestine, we'll create another Arab state, and we'll create a Jewish state. It'll be a little sliver. And the Jews said, you know what, we'll take it, because we have nothing, and Jews need a home, and we want to come back to our homeland, and we'll take it. And the Arabs said no. And so it wasn't created. Then 1947 again, it went to the United Nations. The United Nations says, we propose similar. We'll divide it. There'll be a Jewish state and an Arab state. And the Arabs said, no, we'll go to war. Not 1 inch for the Jewish state. And they went to war. 5 Arab armies invaded Israel when the British left in May 1948. And they killed a lot of people. They killed 1% of the Israelis, so 6,000 people were killed. They came up to Jerusalem, which is right up into the center of the country, and they were defeated. And they continue, sadly, to have a policy that their dream is not to have a Palestinian state living side by side with the Jewish state, but no Jewish state. And in recent times, in the Camp David meetings in 2000 with Bill Clinton, he brought Yasser Arafat and Ehud Barak. And Ehud Barak says, I will give you basically all of the West Bank and all of Gaza and half of Jerusalem. And there's a little bit we have to adjust because there's some Jewish communities over the border. So then we'll compensate basically 100%. And Arafat walked away. And it's not me saying it, it's Bill Clinton. He said it then and he's saying it now. He said, you don't understand what I offered Arafat. I offered him everything. And they walked away and they launched an intifada, which was shooting and suicide bombings starting in 2000, 2001. In 2008, Israel had a new prime minister. His name was Ehud Olmert. And he said, I'm going to try again. And he met with Mahmoud Abbas. And again, he gave him a map. And he said, basically, I give you 100% of the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem. And Abbas said, interesting. And he never answered. Basically, no. So time and again, Israeli leaders on the left who say we don't want war and we're not nationalists, we want peace and we'll compromise because the land that they offer the Palestinians is Judea and Samaria. It's biblical land. It's where the Ark of the Covenant was moved in Shiloh. It's all places that are part of Jewish, the ancient Jewish homeland. It's part of what the Jews consider the land of Israel, and everyone. But we'll compromise because living is more important. Sadly, today, there's no living Palestinian leader who's willing to accept that they want a Palestinian state. Instead, their dream continues to be they want no Jewish state. And there are peaceful Palestinians. My friend Rami Aman in Gaza, he's someone from Gaza who tries to make peace with Israelis. Hamas arrested him. They put him in prison for 6 months. And the person who reported him to Hamas for doing video calls, he would do a video call with Israelis to say, let's talk about peace. He would do a bicycle in Gaza while the Israelis are bicycling on their side. Really a idealistic, naive in the best sense of the word, a real defender of peace. And he was reported by a woman named Hind al-Khudari, young woman, who was working for Amnesty International. I'm going to say that again. A woman who had worked for Amnesty International, the great human rights organization. On her Facebook page, she said, Wallah, Hamas, this guy, my neighbor, Rami Aman here in Gaza, is doing normalization with Israel. This is a crime. And she tagged the Hamas leaders in the head of the police, the spokesman, in Gaza. And the next day, they came to arrest Rami Aman, put him in prison for 6.5 months, and did bad things to him. So sadly, there are Palestinians who want, but they're the ones who are thrown in prison, they're crushed, and the leaders, whether it's Hamas, the religious Islamist, or the secular Mahmoud Abbas, they don't say, their dream is not to say we'll have our state and the Jews will have their state. No, they say there's no legitimacy for a Jewish state.